It started with a phone call that should have meant nothing. Just a reminder from the clinic, Mr. Callahan, we've moved your appointment up to Tuesday. Dr. Lang said it's important. Important. That word always carries a weight when you're over 60 and your chest aches every now and then. So I showed up early. The air smelled of disinfectant and cheap coffee. Rain pressed against the windows like it wanted in. I'd been through this place 100 times before, same gray walls, same posters about heart health, same nurse pretending she still remembered me. Except this time, she avoided my eyes. Dr. Lang will see you in a few minutes, she said, voice tight, hands fidgeting with a clipboard. I nodded, sat down. A man on the TV was talking about trust in medicine. The irony made me smirk. I wasn't the paranoid type. I spent 40 years as an engineer, numbers, systems, logic. I believed in processes, not gut feelings. But something about that morning felt off. Then I noticed the door to the doctor's office was cracked open. Voices carried, not loud, just sharp enough to slice through the hum of the waiting room. A male voice, you'll get what we agreed on. Just make sure it looks like an accident. Then silence. The hair on my arms rose. I leaned forward, pretending to tie my shoe, trying to catch another word. A woman's voice, hesitant, nervous. I can't do that, mister. A knock on the counter startled me. The nurse. Mr. Callahan. You can go in now. The door opened wider. Dr. Lang stood there, usually calm, professional, steady. But her eyes, they flicked toward me, then back to someone behind the door. For a second, I thought I saw my son-in-law's reflection in the glass cabinet behind her. Impossible, I told myself. He was supposed to be at work. Still, when I stepped inside, I caught a trace of his cologne, expensive, woodsy, something he never shut up about. Dr. Lang gestured to the chair. How have you been feeling, John? Fine, I said. Just fine. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Your daughter mentioned you've been having headaches. My daughter? I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. What did she tell you exactly? That she's worried. That you've been forgetting things. My jaw tightened. I see. She turned to the counter, unwrapping a syringe, sliding a small vial out of a paper bag. We're going to try a new supplement, an experimental compound. It should help with memory stabilization. Experimental? She froze mid-motion, then forced a light laugh. It's just a vitamin blend. Completely safe. Her hands trembled. I'd seen people lie before, on factory floors, in boardrooms, in funerals. The body always betrays the truth. My pulse slowed, not sped up. That's how I knew something inside me had already shifted. I watched the clear liquid fill the syringe. Watched her hesitate before turning back to me. If you'd just roll up your sleeve. Who was here before me? I asked quietly. She blinked. Excuse me. I heard a man's voice. Sounded like he was giving orders. Probably a delivery rep, she said too quickly. That's when I decided to test her. Strange. I thought I heard my son-in-law's name. The syringe wobbled in her hand. A single droplet formed at the tip, hung there, shimmering, then fell. John, she said, voice breaking, maybe we should reschedule. I stood, my chair scraping the tile. Yeah. Maybe we should. I walked out without another word. The nurse called after me, but her voice faded under the rain outside. My car felt colder than the street. I sat there, engine off, listening to my heartbeat steady itself. Bribe. Accident. Experimental compound. 3 words that didn't belong together, unless someone wanted them to. My daughter's husband, Ethan, the golden boy with a startup and a smile, had once joked I was worth more dead than alive because of my insurance plan. I'd laughed then. I didn't now. As I drove home, the storm followed me. The wipers couldn't keep up. I kept replaying that conversation, every pause, every twitch, every smell. By the time I pulled into my driveway, one thought had settled like a nail in wood: if Ethan really was behind this, I'd find out. And when I did, I wouldn't call the police. I'd handle it myself. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the syringe. That single drop sliding off the needle like it was waiting for my pulse. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky still hung low and heavy, that kind of gray that makes you feel like time itself has stalled. I brewed my coffee, black, no sugar. The bitterness helped me think. Old habits, methodical, rational, mechanical. I took out my notebook, the one I used back when I ran the maintenance division for Rydell Engineering. I made lists, not guesses. Step 1, verify what I heard. Step 2, identify the motive. Step 3, expose the bastard. At 8:45, I called the clinic. The receptionist's voice was bright, too bright. "Dr. Lang isn't available right now, Mr. Callahan. She had a family emergency." Family emergency. Sure. I hung up and checked my messages. There was one from my daughter, Emma. "Hey, Dad. Ethan said you weren't feeling great yesterday. Maybe you should rest. Don't drive too much. Love you." I stared at her words. The phrasing was too careful. Like she'd rehearsed it. Ethan said. My gut tightened. I drove to the pharmacy on Main Street. Hank, the pharmacist, had been around forever, used to fish with my brother back in '85. I showed him a photo of the vial I'd snapped before leaving the clinic. He squinted. "Not a vitamin blend. That's Salatrin, preclinical stage. Still under FDA evaluation. Strong stuff. Why would your doctor be injecting that?" That was all I needed to hear. I thanked him, left the store, and sat in my truck for a full minute. If this was some kind of mix-up, it was the most dangerous one I'd ever seen. But then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Nothing for a second, just breathing. Then a woman whispered. "Mr. Callahan, this is Nurse Patel. Please don't come back to the clinic. Dr. Lang is scared. She didn't take the money. But your son-in-law, he's serious. He said he'd ruin her if she didn't go through with it." The line went dead. I didn't even realize I'd gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. That was it. Confirmation. No speculation. No paranoia. Cold fact. Ethan had tried to bribe my doctor. And he wasn't just greedy, he was desperate. That evening, I drove to Emma's house. The porch light was on. Through the window, I saw my daughter laughing at something Ethan said. Domestic bliss, the kind you see in commercials, candles, wine, everything perfect. But something in that scene made my stomach turn. Because I knew the truth now, that smile wasn't safety. It was blindness. I knocked once, twice. Ethan opened the door, all smiles. "John. Didn't expect to see you. Come in." His charm was oil-slick smooth. "I won't stay long," I said. "Just wanted to talk." "Sure thing," he said, motioning to the couch. "Drink?" I shook my head. "Heard you've been busy lately. Spending a lot of time near the clinic." His jaw stiffened, just for half a second. Then the grin returned. "Clinic? Nah, I hate hospitals." "Why?" I smiled back. "Funny. Dr. Lang says otherwise." He didn't flinch this time, too practiced. "You must have misheard." That's when Emma walked in. "Dad, what's going on?" I looked at her, same blue eyes her mother had. Honest eyes. I didn't want to see them harden against me. Just catching up, Ethan said quickly. Your dad's a little confused. You know how stress can. Enough, I said sharply. Don't talk about me like I'm not here. The air turned thick. Emma frowned, looking between us. Ethan, what is he talking about? He put a hand on her shoulder, gentle, rehearsed. Nothing. He's tired. Maybe. Tell her about the injection, I cut in. Tell her what you tried to make my doctor do. Silence. For a moment, all I heard was the tick of the wall clock. Then Emma laughed nervously. Dad, that's crazy. Ethan wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Try to kill me for insurance money? Ethan stepped forward, voice dropping low. You should leave now, John. You're not well. Something in his tone snapped the last thread of patience I had. I leaned close enough for him to smell the coffee and anger on my breath. I know what you did. And I'll prove it. He smirked, but his eyes betrayed him, tiny twitch near the corner. You don't have proof. You just have paranoia. I turned toward the door, then stopped. You know what's funny about paranoia, Ethan? It keeps people alive. And I walked out. That night, I went through every file I had, insurance documents, medical statements, family trust notes. Ethan's fingerprints were everywhere. He'd convinced Emma to make him joint beneficiary on my health plan last year. Subtle. Legal. Deadly. I found something else, an email from his account that had been forwarded accidentally to me months ago. A business contact named R. Dufresne. The subject line. Asset liquidation timeline. I remembered thinking it was about his company. Now I wasn't so sure. I tracked down the contact name through an old colleague who still did cybersecurity audits. R. Dufresne turned out to be a front for a man tied to fraudulent insurance claims, shell operations, staged deaths, offshore transfers. That's when it all clicked. Ethan wasn't just reckless. He was involved in something bigger. And I wasn't just a target, I was a loose end. 3 days later, I received a call from Dr. Lang. Her voice trembled. John, please don't call here again. He knows we spoke. He came to my house. I can't. The line cut. That night, I saw a black SUV parked across from my driveway. Engine running, lights off. It stayed for an hour, then left. That's when I realized I was already inside his game. He tried to poison me, failed, and now he was watching. Waiting. But what Ethan didn't know, what no one ever seems to understand about old men like me, is that time teaches you patience. And patience is the sharpest weapon there is. I poured myself a bourbon, sat at the table, and opened my notebook again. At the top of the page, I wrote. Revenge plan, Phase 1, let him believe I'm afraid. Then, below it. Phase 2, make him believe he's already won. After that night, I didn't call anyone. Didn't warn my daughter, didn't confront Ethan again. I just went silent. You learn a lot in silence, who calls, who doesn't, who gets nervous when you stop talking. By day 3, Ethan texted me. Hey John, no hard feelings about the other night. Emma's worried. Maybe we should talk over dinner. I almost smiled. He couldn't stand not knowing what I was doing. That was good. Fear of uncertainty was a tool. I wrote back. Sure. Dinner sounds fine. My place. That gave me 48 hours to prepare. The old engineer in me came alive again, not the father, not the patient, not the victim. The man who used to design systems that couldn't fail. I dug out my spare phone, one I'd used before I retired, wiped, clean, untraceable. Installed a voice recorder app and placed it under the kitchen table, taped beneath the edge. Then I called my old colleague, Frank. He owed me more than one favor. Frank, I need a small miracle. Can you spoof a caller ID from a hospital line? Depends who you're calling, he said. Just my son-in-law. I need him to believe it's the clinic. I'll send you the number. He didn't ask why. That's what real friends do, they trust your tone, not your explanation. The next evening, I sat by the window, looking at the rain streaking down the glass. Same weather as that day in the clinic. It felt poetic. I poured a bourbon, not to drink, just to hold. The weight of it steadied my hand. When Ethan and Emma arrived, I greeted them with the same smile I used to give visiting clients, warm, harmless, rehearsed. Glad you came, I said. I've been thinking about what happened. Maybe I overreacted. Emma exhaled in relief. Ethan nodded, cautious. Yeah, well, stress gets to all of us. I just want us to move past this, I said. Family shouldn't fight over misunderstandings. He smiled again, too easily. I couldn't agree more. I served dinner, roast chicken, his favorite. Let him get comfortable. Let him think I was harmless again. Halfway through the meal, my other phone, the untraceable one, buzzed quietly in my pocket. Frank's message, white heavy check mark, call placed. A minute later, Ethan's phone rang. The display flashed, Lang Clinic. He excused himself, stepped into the hallway. I watched Emma slice her chicken, oblivious. Through the wall, I could hear Ethan whisper sharply. I told you to keep quiet. No more calls. Do you want this to blow up? What do you mean he came back? No, I told you he's out of the picture. Then delete everything. Understand? Everything. He came back smiling. Work call, he said. I pretended not to notice the sweat near his temple. After dinner, when they left, I retrieved the recorder. The audio was perfect. Clean. Enough to destroy him, but not yet. Not before he'd shown his hand completely. That night, I made a new list in my notebook. Phase 3, contain the threat. Control the board. I called Dr. Lang again. This time, she answered in tears. He's ruined me, John. He filed a complaint saying I misprescribed you. My license. Stop, I said. I'll fix it. But I need you to play along. What do you mean? I'm going to give him what he wants. Your consent to the treatment. Something like that, I said quietly. Except this time, the substance won't go into me. Over the next few days, I acted like nothing had happened. I visited Emma. I joked with Ethan. I let them think I'd gone soft, the lonely old man too tired to fight. But in the background, I was moving parts. Frank tracked Ethan's offshore accounts. Dar. Lang prepared 2 identical vials, one harmless saline, one with a fluorescent tracer that would show up under UV light. The plan was simple, bait and record. Once Ethan tried to push the injection again, I'd have proof of intent, enough to bury him without ever firing a shot. The night before the setup, I looked at my late wife's photograph on the shelf. She'd passed 5 years ago. She used to say I was too forgiving for my own good. You were right, Mary, I said aloud. But not this time. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and let the darkness settle. Tomorrow, the game would change again. I didn't sleep the night before the appointment, but I didn't pretend otherwise. I made coffee, dressed in the same cardigan Emma liked, and walked like a man with nothing to hide. If he thought he'd catch me trembling, he was in for a disappointment. Dr. Lang met me in the clinic lobby, eyes red but steady. She moved like someone carrying a secret she hated. Everything set, she whispered. I've prepped 2 vials. One's saline. One's the tracer. It'll look like the real compound under the light. You sure? I asked. She nodded. If he notices, he'll suspect. If he doesn't, we get what we need. Good. Subtlety was the point. Frank parked 2 blocks away in a nondescript sedan. My old PI, Torres, sat inside with binoculars and a long face that matched my mood. He liked to talk about justice in blunt instruments. I liked to hire him because he had no poetry. You want me to tail him after? He asked. Tail him, I said. Record everything. And, be invisible. The clinic smelled the same as the first day, disinfectant and lemon soap. The nurse gave me a quick, guilty smile. Somewhere in the building, someone watched on a monitor. I had a blind spot for that, but the recorder under my table would pick up voices even walls try to muffle. Ethan arrived on schedule, slick hair, expensive watch, hands that didn't know how to be still. He walked in like a man who owned the right to everything in the room. Good to see you, John, he said. That smile of his could melt snow. I returned it like I was handing him a card he'd already lost. Dr. Lang began the charade. She spoke clinical, calm. We'll just do the quick injection, Mr. Callahan. It's minor. She prepared the syringe. I watched the vial she took from the tray, clear, labeled. She showed it to me plainly, as if to reassure. Ethan stood by her side like a proud sponsor. Just safe, he said, to me. We want you healthy. His hand lingered near the vial. He reached for it the way a gambler touches chips. That was the moment I wanted. I let him think he'd fooled me. She turned her back to fetch a cotton swab. Ethan's smile slipped into impatience. He leaned in low. Make sure you do it right, he whispered to her. No mistakes. This has to look natural. I felt the recorder hum beneath my feet, small, ordinary, patient. I felt Torres outside the window shift in his seat, like a predator adjusting a line of sight. The air tightened. Dr. Lang returned and, as the plan required, she swapped the vials, the saline she'd set aside now in her hand. Ethan's fingers found the vial first. He lifted it, inspected, then glanced up at me with the smallest of triumphs. He'd done this before, or at least he'd thought about doing it enough to savor the moment. He extended the vial to Dr. Lang, then, unsteady for the first time, his voice thinned, this will calm him, right? He won't react. He was talking to her, but he meant the money, the plan, the future he'd already started to build without me. She hesitated, which was the sound of a paper caught in a draft. It's fine, she lied softly. It's fine. She prepared the injection and bent to my arm. I kept my face neutral, the face of a man used to weather changes. Then the small miracle I'd paid for, the UV light. It was a ridiculous thing to hide in your cardigan, but I had it, a slim pen that glowed with a tiny, obscene blue. When the saline went in, nothing happened. When she pretended to switch the vials back and forth, Ethan's hand tightened, then relaxed, satisfied. Later, once they'd left, I'd ask Dr. Lang to hold the used syringe under the light. The tracer would glow like a confession. The recording would catch his instructions, his voice, soft as a killer's breath. But the trap had another hinge, perception. I needed Ethan to believe we'd been fooled by his own arrogance. So I let a seed of doubt sprout. During the procedure, I coughed, loud and theatrical. You sure this won't make me sleepy? I asked. Ethan's head snapped. No, it won't. It's nothing. It's nothing. His voice trembled a hair. Good, I said. Because Emma and I have plans. I let my eyes linger on him. We're going fishing next week. He forced a laugh that scraped like gravel. He was used to controlling things. He'd never liked surprises. When Dr. Lang finished, she folded the syringe into a small biohazard bag with hands shaking so slightly I almost missed it. She looked at me with a human plea, the plea of someone who traded safety for conscience. "Go home," she mouthed. I left the clinic with the bag hidden beneath the folds of my cardigan. Torres trailed Ethan from the curb while Frank fed the call logs into a file I could read later. Everything was arranged. The recorder under the table had captured the hush of his instructions. The vial labeled Zolotrin was safely out of sight, replaced with saline that would do nothing but keep him confident. Back at my house, I handed the bag to Dr. Lang in my kitchen, where she turned off the lights and produced the UV pen from her pocket. The syringe, under that sick blue glow, laughed in the dark, nothing but saline. And then she held up the empty tray and, with the same light, showed me a faint, ghostly fluorescence on the tiny cap no one would notice, the tracer, placed only in the vial I'd instructed her to use when we needed hard evidence. We weren't done yet. Evidence without timing was a dead letter. Torres had followed Ethan to a nightclub, then to a back office where off-the-books men like his associate Dufresne made deals. Frank had traced calls to shell numbers. Between the audio in my pocket and the footage Torres shot from across the street, we would stitch a picture he could never stitch back together. I sat at my kitchen table as the night closed in like a fist and felt, for the first time in weeks, the cool of a plan that might actually work. Revenge, I'd learned, wasn't a sudden eruption. It was a clock you wind carefully. Tomorrow, I thought, watching the glowing pen fade, tomorrow we pull a thread and the whole sweater comes apart. I invited them for dinner again. This time I asked Emma to bring a friend, something casual, nothing strange. Ethan arrived tidy and smug, like a man who'd rehearsed his innocence in a mirror. He didn't know he was walking into a room built of his own mistakes. We sat. The food was the same roast, but I felt no appetite. Frank and Torres were outside, invisible. The recorder was on the shelf within reach. The vial was in my pocket, the tracer already noted under the clinic light. I had 2 ways to show him, the sound and the shine. Midway through the meal I set my glass down and spoke calmly. "Ethan, remember the clinic call the other night? You sounded worried." He smiled, small. "I thought we were past that, John. I recorded you." I let the sentence hang like a blade. Emma blinked. "What?" Ethan tried to laugh it off. "You can't be serious." I hit play. His voice filled the room, low, precise, instructing the nurse on how to make it look natural. He said the words I'd waited to hear: make it look like an accident, make sure there's no trace back to me. His face went white like paper. He tried to reach for his phone. I didn't let him. I slid a small UV pen across the table like a quiet joke. "Show us the vial you used," I said to Dr. Lang, who sat hidden in the doorway until my signal. She came forward, gloves on, and produced the syringe cap. Under the pen, the plastic lit up, an ugly, undeniable glow. The tracer we'd put there as bait shimmered like a confession. Ethan stood. He stammered. This is." Torres walked in then, holding a tablet. He hit play. On the screen, a grainy clip of Ethan in a back room, leaning over a table with a man whose name I'd only seen in ledgers, R. Dufresne, discussing payouts and timelines. His voice, calm and certain, matched the one on my recorder. Emma slid off her chair. "Ethan, tell me this isn't true." He couldn't. He had nothing to say that wasn't an excuse. The arrogance had been his armor, it shattered under evidence. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. I let the room breathe in the fallout. I watched the man who joked about my worth lose the part of himself that was all performance. "You built a life on lies," I said softly. "I offered you a chance to stop. You chose to keep building." He left before the police arrived, before we even called them. He didn't need to wait. His phone started buzzing with messages from partners, from banks, from people who smelled trouble and wanted nothing to do with it. When the door closed behind him, the house was quiet except for Emma's sobs. I crossed to her and folded her into my arms like I had 100 times before. She trembled, body shaking, hurt raw and immediate. Justice arrived not as thunder, but as a slow, steady rain. It cleared the air. It left the ground exposed. I didn't celebrate. I sat on the porch as the sky brightened, thinking that some prices are paid in silence. I had taken his future. I had kept my hands clean. But the quiet that followed felt less like relief and more like an accounting, one that would live in me long after the lights went out. The morning after Ethan's fall was strangely ordinary. The sky was clear, the air sharp with autumn. My house smelled like coffee and dust, peace and aftermath mixed together. News traveled fast. His company froze assets. Partners vanished. A warrant followed. By evening, every network had his photo, local entrepreneur under investigation for medical fraud and attempted homicide. Emma didn't come by that day. She called instead, voice trembling between anger and heartbreak. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because you wouldn't have believed me," I said. Silence. Then a whisper, "I'm sorry, Dad." That was enough. I drove to the lake that night, the same one where I used to take her fishing when she was little. The water was still, the kind that holds reflections too clearly. I tossed a small metal recorder into it, the one that had caught Ethan's voice. The splash was soft, final. Some victories aren't meant to be replayed. The world went on. Dar. Lang got her license back, she sent a letter a month later, said she'd moved to Oregon. Frank deleted every trace of our plan. Torres sent me one photo, Ethan boarding a police transport van, head down, no swagger left. Then Torres deleted that, too. I kept one thing, the old notebook. On the last page, under all the lists and notes, I wrote one sentence. Justice doesn't heal, it balances. I sat on the porch as dusk settled. Emma's car turned into the driveway. She stepped out, wrapped in a coat too thin for the cold, eyes swollen but soft. "Dinner?" she asked quietly. I nodded. Inside, we talked about nothing, recipes, weather, a memory of her mother's laugh. I didn't mention revenge, or justice, or fear. Some stories don't need telling twice. When she left, I stayed by the window, watching her taillights fade. The quiet that followed wasn't empty this time, it was earned. I poured one last bourbon, raised it toward the dark, and said to the silence, "Rest now, Mary. The game's over." If this story spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can continue the journey by clicking the box on the left. Thank you for being here.